Hi crafters, it's Andrea from Prairie Sky Paper Crafts. Today I'm showing you what you can do with the Stampin' Write markers. They're so versatile. They come in every color family and you can get them in the color family set. When I first started with Stampin' Up, I wasn't really sure that I was going to invest in all of the ink pads, and actually I still haven't. But I did invest in the markers. I started by building one color family at a time. And these are just as versatile as the ink pads. In fact, you can even refill them with the re-inkers, and I'm going to show you how. So first of all, the markers have two ends. There's a brush end and a fine tip end. This is Coastal Cabana. So the brush end you can do for wide strokes. You can use it for coloring. And then the fine tip you can use for addressing envelopes, for writing in a journal, for scrapbooking. There's so many uses. Now I'm just going to bring in a piece of paper towel because as you can see, the color is a little bit faded. And I'm going to pop off the end that the brush tip is on. And I'm going to bring in a pair of tweezers. You can also use pliers or anything really that has a flat surface that isn't going to mar your tip. For me, the easiest way to do it is to hold the nib and just twist gently to take it out. And then I'm going to lay it onto my piece of paper towel. I always like to have paper towel underneath just in case. I'm going to bring in my re-inker and give it a shake. And this is exactly the same re-inker that you would use for your ink pad. And you're going to hold your barrel straight, well, at a slight angle. And you're going to gently, one drop at a time, add ink into your marker. You don't want to do it too fast because there's a foam barrel inside that needs time to absorb the ink. And I'm just going to close the lid. Okay, and then you're just going to take your tweezers or your pliers again and pick up your nib and gently put it in exactly the same way that it came out. All right, I think I put in just a little bit too much. So I'm just going to leave this off to the side. Whoops. And I'm going to put my marker upright into a container just so that it has time to flow down the barrel. And I will come back to that in a few minutes. So I'm just going to clean off my tweezers and I'll show you what else you can do with your markers. So obviously you can use it like a regular marker. You can color on paper, but the markers are watercolor. So if you try to use Memento or another excuse me, Stampin' Up ink pad, they're water-based. So if you used a water-based applicator to put it on, and that includes things like Wink of Stella, the blender pen, and the water painters, you're going to have the black or the other color pull into your image. So what you're going to want to do is use StazOn for this. StazOn does come in an ink pad. There's also a re-inker with it. And you do need a special cleaner, which Stampin' Up also sells. The StazOn cleaner works really, really well. It doesn't always get all of the black off, but it's better than leaving it. And this does dry super fast. So when you ink it up, you want to get it onto your paper as quickly as possible. StazOn is also really good for non-porous surfaces like stamping on vellum, stamping on tile, stamping on glass, or even the window sheets. Hello, Bailey. You showed up to work today, did you? Okay, and then I'm just going to peel it off. All right. I did just ink up my StazOn, so it's not 100% fully absorbed into the ink pad at the moment. But it does give you a crisp, clean image. All right. So I'm just going to do a direct to paper application for this one. And I'm going to color in the holly berries. This doesn't look great. Like I said, I just did re-ink it. So the longer it sits, the ink will absorb into the ink pad and it will give you a better, more crisp impression. And I'll show you that with another stamp and a pad that's been inked up for a little bit longer. Okay, so now, excuse me, I'm going to show you how you can use it for watercoloring. So I've pulled in Granny Apple Green, and I'm just going to give a little bit of color to the ink pad, or to the stamp block, I should say. And I'm going to show you with the blender pen. So you're just going to pull a little bit of color off of the stamp block and just apply it directly to your stamped image. I like it with the blender pen because as you're coloring, if you just let it go, so I'll start at the top, you can see that the color gets lighter and lighter as the ink wears off. So it does really give you a lot of mileage for your coloring. So you can do the shadows, the highlights, and the midtones basically with one application or a couple of applications with the blender pen. And to make sure that you have it cleaned off between colors, just scribble it off on a paper towel or a piece of scrap paper. Now you can do the same thing with the water painters. Stampin' Up! Has a pack of 3. It comes in the wide tip, the thicker tip, and the fine tip. And for this one, I'm going to use the fine tip because I want to pull into the gray. I'm just going to bring in another block, and I'm going to use Smoky Slate for this one. And again, brush tip, apply the color onto your block, and then pick it up with the aqua paint, or the water painter. Once you have the brush primed, you don't need to push to get more water out because it will leave splotches on your work surface, or it can just bring out a big blob of water and put it right over top of your watercolor work. So with this, I'm just picking up a little bit of color and bringing it in. This is really good for like abstract backgrounds or really large stamped areas, because as you apply your water, it does tend to bleed a little bit, so it makes it a little bit more artistic and a little bit finer. Okay, so there's that done. So we've used direct to paper, the blender pen, the water painter, and also you can use Wink of Stella exactly the same way as the water pen or the blender. Or once you have your image colored, you can just go ahead and color right over top of it with the Wink of Stella. So if you have any more questions about how to use any of these tools, drop me a message either on Facebook, Prairie Sky Paper Crafts at facebook.com. You can send me an email, or you can just comment on this video. Okay, so I'm going to move this off to the side, and I'm going to show you an easy and I think kind of fun technique. I'm just going to grab a tissue and wipe off my block, because now I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and use your watercolor paper for a blocking technique. So I've got my mister. It has a really super fine spray. I'm just going to move it off to the side because I don't want my work surface covered with water. Okay, so I've gently sprayed it, so you can see that there's a small or fine sheen of water over top. And I'm going to use this probably for a Christmassy background. So I'm going to bring in Granny Apple Green, which is one of my favorite greens. It's just so happy and cheery. Oops. And it really doesn't matter how you apply the ink onto your block, because when you apply it to the paper, it's going to spread. Okay, so I'm going to put this one this way. I'm just going to twist it. I'm going to add a little bit more. Oops. I'm going to add it this way. Oops. Give it a bit of a twist. Okay. And then to make it run, you can either add more water onto your block and have the water bead and it'll spread. Or what I'm going to do is bring in my mister again and move it off to the side and give it a couple of spritzes. And the more water that you add, the more fluid it will become. Now you can either set it off to the side and let it dry. You can tamp off with a tissue or a paper towel, or you can dry it off with your heat tool. Okay, so I'm just going to set this off to the side. Actually, maybe I'm going to add a little bit of green, or a little bit of red, I should say. So I'm going to bring in real red. and color my block. Oops. And I really do like using watercolor paper too, because if it doesn't look the way that you have in your head, if you want to lighten it up, you can just add a little bit more water, or just keep layering the colors. Now this is still damp, so I'm going to go ahead and mist my block for this one. And you can see how the water's beaded a bit on there. And then I'm just going to add the red right here. And give it another spritz to let it run a little. And I'm just going to tap it off. Actually, that might be a good background for the moose stamp. Okay, so that part is done. Now I'm going to show you another really quick, really easy way to create a card with a lot of wow, and we're going to do a direct to stamp. We're going to color right on our stamps. I'm going to move this one off, and for this one I'm using the Tasteful Touches stamp set. I'm going to use the feather. Actually, I'm going to grab a tissue and get the green ink off of this block first. And then I'm using Just Saying Hello and the feather stamp. So I think I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to position it like that. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to use the Melon Mambo and Smoky Slate markers. And I'm going to go ahead and color the feather. To do this, you're going to want to use the edge of your marker, just so that it doesn't dull the tip. And it also gives you a better coverage on your stamp. Okay, and I'm also going to do the word hello with the Melon Mambo. I really like this too because you can block off parts of stamps with just your marker. For example, for this, if you wanted to use the Santa stamp that's in the August to January mini catalog, and just the I believe sentiment, you can leave off the it's silly but I believe and just color that part and have that on your image as well. Okay, so I'm done with the Melon Mambo. I'm going to flip the brush tip with the gray, the Smoky Slate. Now, if you do accidentally touch the other color with your marker, all you need to do is pull it over to a piece of scrap paper or a piece of paper towel and just give it a few strokes until that color is no longer there. All right, so I'm just going to do the Just Saying now. Now to finish this as a card, I would probably trim the paper a little bit and put it on a Melon Mambo layer with maybe some Smoky Slate behind it. Or you can actually color ribbon, the seam binding, the Whisper White seam binding that's in the mini. You can actually color that with markers as well, but you do need to let it have some dry time because they are water soluble. If they aren't dry, the color will come off on your hands. Okay, so I've been talking and I've been working. These are water-based, so they do dry out, not terribly quickly, but to make sure that you have a really good crisp impression, you're just going to want to give it a few huffs with your breath to reactivate the ink. Okay, and then just place it on your card, give it a good push, and there you go. Quick, easy, a lot more visual interest than just stamping it in one solid color. So I hope you found this video helpful. And again, reach out by the comments, Facebook, email, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you'd like to be notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fabulous day.